Trey Lance isn't ready. He wasn't. We saw nothing last year that thinks he's ready. And also, like, if you really read that Instagram post carefully, it was a goodbye to Tampa. And this is why I went all in on this the first couple weeks of January. I think he was done in Tampa. I think guys like LeBron, Brady, whoever, they look at, they have the ability to kind of sniff their team. And if they don't totally like the smell, they're out at this point of their career when they're just about winning titles. I think he knew Tampa, that was a wrap, that they were not winning a title in Tampa. So I'm either not playing anymore, or maybe something will happen with San Francisco, or maybe, I'll be an owner in Miami. But I think it's one of those two things. I really do.
So to recap, it's either he's part owner of the Dolphins or he plays for the 49ers.
When I saw that BR thing come down, I'm like, I hope I didn't send you a text that you didn't see.
No, I kept an eye on it. That was just Kevin O'Connell.
Kevin O'Connell.
Kevin O'Connell, yeah.
To me, the Dolphins thing seems like a pretty big stretch. But did you go back once you heard this and read, or at least just kind of go over? Did you feel like that was what he was doing? Because when I originally read it, when he retired, it was bizarre, because I think everyone had the same take. Like, I get he said goodbye a couple years ago, but he's a fucking Patriot. This Tampa thing, while they won a championship, he's thanking the dude cooking him, salads, and Jason Light's cousin, and like the offensive quality control guys and the equipment dudes that he used to like shower with. It was like, this is a little over the top. I felt like when he left the Patriots, he didn't thank that many people, and he knew him for 20 years. It felt he went over the top to thank those guys, and maybe he truly does. And then I also counter that with, people forget, a lot of people didn't want him. Kyle said no. The Raiders kind of didn't really feel like, a lot of people shorted him, right? Yeah. He was a stock, and they shorted him like it's going to be over. And it turns out he wasn't. So I wonder if just as a person, he feels like these were the one motherfuckers who were like, Tom, we'll not only take you, we'll kick James to the curb. Like, come on, what do you need? You want us to go land Antonio, Gronk? They're all your buddies are welcome. That was the only place that gave him the treatment. I know it's crazy to think 2 years later, because, they hosted playoff games. They won the Super Bowl. It was not like that the year which he left the Patriots.
No, it wasn't. Right? No, he had just thrown a bad interception, 2 bad interceptions. A bad interception at the end of the regular season against the Dolphins, and then an interception to end his career in the playoffs, right?
I think it was, if I remember correctly, Logan Ryan for the Titans, who also played for the Patriots. It was like, wow, this is how it's going to end?
Yep. So his IG post was, to my Bucs teammates, then to all the Bucs fans, then to the city of Tampa, then to the Glazer family, then to Jason Light, then to my head coach, Bruce Arians, then to all the Bucs coaches, then to every single Bucs staffer and employee. I'm just reading you the first line from every paragraph. Okay,
so it was 5 Instagram swipes.
Then to Alex Guerrero, then to Don Yee and Steve Dubin, then to my parents and entire family, and lastly to my wife and my children. Look, Tom Brady retired, and I think Tom Brady retired to retire.
Papers in? That's always like, there's papers in.
Good question. I think he retired to retire. And I also think he might come back out of retirement. I don't think he retired to like sneak away. Does that make sense? I think he retired with the intention to retire. Maybe because Giselle wanted him to retire. I don't know. But I think, do you agree with that? That if he comes back, the retirement was a retirement and then he changed his mind? Or do you think this is part of an exit side door?
I haven't thought too much about that. I don't know. That's a good, I'm not trying to sit the fence here. I think it would be a little weird, and we were talking about this yesterday.
To not know and think about it than to spew.
You could convince me his wife forced him into this. He did not want to do this. I mean, he was it you telling me, or did they mention this on the podcast? Like, it's pretty clear he was a top 2 or 3 player in the league last year at his position. I think PFF overall, and listen, I'm not the biggest PFF guy, but just overall in the league, he was the 9th best individual player. That includes like the Aaron Donalds, the Trent Williams. His numbers were fantastic. He was good. And then you even watch that last game, you're like, maybe it is time. And then the game ends, you're like, he still got it. He fucking throws the touchdown to Mike Evans. It just felt like I wouldn't bet against this guy.
Yeah.
He's better than 95% of the league at his own position. And just as a player, like his value given how important that position is. If he wasn't Tom Brady and just was like Matt Stafford or whoever and just retire, it would be insane. People like, at 35 years old, like, what are you doing, bro? You're a dominant player. I feel like it's not, no one's pushing back on that just because like I'm not necessarily, but I understand like people are like, I'm tired of Tom. He's 44, but he's still fucking good.
It did occur to me that the best way to get Tom back would be to float it out there that, Belichick has been telling people privately that he thinks Tom's a quitter.
That would be a good one.
Right? Like Belichick thinks Tom took the easy way out.
Yeah.
Like that, like I think it's still in there. Look, he's tweeting about Stafford, drink water. He's tweeting, Super Bowl. Like Tom did not just put the phone away and go off to Cabo.
Would you see the day of the Super Bowl? He just quoted it and said shit.
Yeah. Yeah. It was very good. I think, how could you, I don't know.
What was the story on Peyton Manning, right? No one wanted him because after that year with his arm shot, like he's like, he doesn't really just want to walk away. So he kind of like asked around and everyone's like, yeah, we're good, Peyton. You're welcome to come like be an exec, but no one would take him. If Tom Brady, and we've been saying this for a while, under no circumstances can Kyle and John Lynch tell him no. It's just not possible. They could not. Now, ultimately, they could if they did it and then Trey Lance was like an MVP candidate. But if he was just average, they would get fucking rightfully destroyed even if they won 10 or 11 games. Like, what are we doing? You got to sign him. But he has to do that. That's, to me, is like, is he still kind of missing it, but he knows it's just like, it's over? That, to me, is he's kind of in this weird no man's land. Is a story going to come out over the next couple weeks that, like, Tom's a little unsure, and he's talking with Giselle, and he's like, the thing that makes it complicated, though, for the 49ers, which by far is the only team that makes sense because they would be immediately them, the Rams, and if Rodgers were to stay, the three teams that would be picked to win the Super Bowl, to represent the NFC. Is he going to move his family out west? Is this going to be strictly, I want to do this for my parents. They get to see me in the games. They still live around here. But a big reason why he stayed on the East Coast, at least supposedly, was because of his first child that lives in New York. But part of it was, Tom wanted to come here to the Bay, and Kyle told him no, so he was prepared to do that.
Yeah.
I do think he could justify it in his mind pretty easily, like, this is for my parents.
Yeah. And I don't think his salary is an issue. If it came down to Tom wants to play and the only thing stopping him is the Niners can only afford to pay him $10 million, if that's the only thing that we're stopping him, he would take the $10 million. If I'm saying if he wanted to play.
Now, there is, like, the Patriot offense, I'm sure there are some similarities, but, listen to that book, it clearly is its own little Tom Brady creation. Then they had the Arians offense, which is nothing like Kyle's, and they kind of morphed it in. If he did come play for Kyle, like there is some just, it'd be difficult to just, hey, man, I'll see you July 28th. I'm not saying I'd let him do that, but it does complicate just. For sure. And I saw someone say, and it makes sense, like the one thing Tom does hang his hat on is he always feels behind the eight ball. He sat out the years in the Patriots because, like, the OTAs, he knows the offense. And even the first time with Arians is OTAs got canceled, remember, because of COVID. And the second year, like, they had already known the offense. But I would kind of expect him, if he did come back and did go to the 49ers, to, like, show up in May and June just to work, just like, I don't know, I want to meet Debo and Ayuk. Right?
Trey's got to teach him the offense.
Yeah, do you bring Gronk?
Yes, you do.
Yeah. And teach.
You bring Gronk. Edelman's like, I'm back, boys. Here's the other thing in the Simmons.
I think he legitimately like had a bad injury. Would he be?
Yeah,
I'd take him too. Kyle's like, could he come back? I'd be like, Kyle, the one guy Kyle wants.
Receiver coach. I did what you did, and what of course I did, and of course you did. I totally dismissed the Dolphins part of that. And the Dolphins thing is like, what is Bill talking about? Where did he get this from? Sometimes magic is about making you look at one hand when the other hand that everyone's dismissing is the real story. And I had this guy, Jeff, start sending me these messages. He's like, the Dolphins thing is not a joke. Him becoming a part owner of the Dolphins. He started sending me these pictures of like Tom's Kentucky Derby. He's like, you know who that person is right there in the background?
Stephen Ross.
That's Bruce Beal. That's the other Dolphins owner. Him and Tom are tight.
Well, what was the deal in the Brian Flores, right? In the harbor. Didn't he want him to go talk to Tom Brady?
It might not have been Jeff Ross. It might have been Bruce Beal. And then he sent me these other stories from over the last month of just like these couple random, like maybe it was like a Tony Pauline tweet or something else, like just Tom and the Dolphins ownership group, blah, blah, blah. Now, Bill says Tom's going to buy the team and then in 5 years become the majority owner. Like, you have to have the money, but Tom becoming a partial owner of the Dolphins. I don't know, but maybe they're like Bill. Did Bill just make that up?
I don't think it's crazy that like he does that.
Yeah.
I thought it was crazy that in 5 years, Stephen Ross is like, you get to own the whole thing now.
No, I agree. That was the part I thought was crazy too. But the point is that I guess this Dolphins thing maybe is somewhat real, and maybe that's how he scratches his itch of football. I don't know. I've never gotten the sense that Tom wants to be grinding tape, but yeah, that could be the PR thing too. Like Tom's in here. Tom's a competitor.
Does Derek Jeter own the Marlins, or is he the GM of the Marlins?
No, he's like I thought he was like the president.
Okay, yeah. I don't see Tom doing what like Derek Jeter is involved in baseball stuff.
Yeah, Derek Jeter goes to work every day, I think.
Yeah, and like as a part of like checking on the minor league guys and like
he's the CEO and part owner.
But he's very active baseball wise, right?
Yes.
And who knows? Maybe Tom, a little like Derek, would get the itch once he's around it. Like I want to be involved in the draft. Hey, can I come to the combine and interview some of these guys? Like I bet Derek. There's parts of that Derek like likes, gets to scratch his itch, right? Like I wouldn't discount that part of Tom or Peyton if they did get involved in that type of role. Like John Lynch is probably someone that always viewed like if I could ever make enough money, I could be a part of an ownership group. Probably realized he couldn't, but he loves being around it and likes the elements of you're not going to coach, but he gets to now he's got to work a lot more than like Tom or Peyton technically would as the president / part owner or whatever. But I think once it's in your blood, like why wouldn't you want to be part of the draft process, right? I mean I think Elway kind of got it, and I kind of like it,
Yeah.
You kind of like you don't. Here's my thing with Tom. Whether I hope he comes to the 49ers. I truly do. I not that I'm skeptical. It almost feels too good to be true, but it would be fucking awesome. I do think, though, that guys like him and Peyton, the huge part of their love of the sport are like the highs and the lows. It's the lead up. And, you get to do it in a different capacity once you're done playing if you get involved, whether it's just as simple as like, hey, I could bring something to the table talking to these guys. At least that's what they think. And, at first, you probably think you know more than you do, and then you get burned on a couple guys. Like, I think this guy's going to be a player, and he's terrible. But how would they not want in on that part, especially the draft part? Like isn't that kind of what everyone, like when I went to Philly, do you know what Joe Banner loved? To be the guy in the draft room, right? Because no one gave a shit. Like, you see Joe Banner? He just landed this new deal with Budweiser. Like, you know what everyone cares about? The second round pick. Like, is this guy any good?
That's nobody in the Starbucks line asks you about the new sponsorship deal for the stadium.
You know where you get no credit is like, yeah, I landed the $200 million deal for Levi's. It's like, oh, cool. What about Aaron Banks? Is he going to be a starting right guard next year?
Right.